I'm so glad to be back with you. I want to thank Morgan Ortegas, who filled in for me 4 out of the 7 days I was off the air. Generalissimo, of course, Dwayne Patterson, 2 days, and Ed Morrissey, 1 day. All superb professionals, and I just greatly appreciate their allowing me to dive deep into the show prep, the debate prep that went on in New York, in Washington, and, of course, in Miami. My thanks to my NBC colleagues at the table, Lester Holt and Kristen Welker, who co-moderated with me in the debate. I have some preliminary thoughts on it, and I will get back to those, but I do not want to hazard guesses about what it was like or what it seemed like, because from inside a debate, it's not really what other people see. I got home last night. The fetching Mrs. Hewitt tells me that TikTok was running ads during the debate, even as I was asking the candidates about TikTok. Some memorable things, and I will sort it out, and by Tuesday, I'll be talking to you about it. Let me give you the news overnight. The advance of Israel deep into Gaza is approaching the outskirts of the Shifa hospital. That hospital, as well as the Rantisi hospital, are allegedly over the command and control headquarters of Hamas. And so the going is going to be very tough. It's going to be very, very brutal. I remind you as well that there are 240 Israelis and other nationalities being held throughout Gaza by the kidnappers of 10-7, and those monsters are releasing photos to terrorize the people of Israel as their troops move forward, the IDF moving very slowly, very methodically. Last night, current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on Fox with Brett Baer. This is what he had to say, cut number one.
I think the Israeli army is performing exceptionally well. It's fighting the terrorists, both above ground and below ground. We're doing everything in our power to reduce civilian casualties. We've managed safe zones and safe corridors so civilians can heed our call to leave, even though Hamas is trying to keep them in. And I think the war is proceeding well. We're going to continue until we eradicate Hamas. Nothing will stop that. We're absolutely committed to victory, which is not only our victory, but it's the victory of the entire civilized world against barbarism.
I believe that the Prime Minister is defining this correctly. There was an enormous rally of pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas people in New York City last night. I do not believe that is representative of public opinion in the United States. In fact, my preliminary view of the debate in its most significant portion, I've put over on X, site formerly known as Twitter, and I'll share it with you right now because I was reading this morning in show prep about that big demonstration in Midtown Manhattan. Many pro-Hamas and anti-Israel protesters among the big crowd of pro-Palestinian demonstrators in New York City last night. One big undercurrent from Wednesday's debate is the obvious realignment towards the GOP of voters for whom the support of Israel is the most important issue, including the Republican Jewish coalition and Matt Brooks, whose questions were very crucial to the debate. I believe that the policy choice by GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel and her colleague David Bossie and their RNC colleagues was brilliant. It underscored the GOP's unwavering support for Israel at a moment that may have an unintended but crucial impact on the 2024 race as voters are realigning. It's a major moment, and people are realigning as a result of the 10-7 invasion of Israel. The seriousness of the GOP on the CCP as well, on China and on the border, are realigning factors as well. The new Cold War is a realigning factor. So handicappers are looking for bumps for this candidate or that candidate, who won the election, who won the debate. What actually matters is the framing of the entire debate, and my hat is off to Ronna McDaniel and David Bossie and the rules changes, which allowed the candidates to talk. I'll talk with Dr. Larry Arnn maybe later today in the Hillsdale Dialogue. Let the candidates speak. And they did. I'm very glad we did it that way. A lot of people are assessing the debate. Again, I hold it in and I kind of let it churn in my head until I have a chance to consider all the various aspects. Governor Sununu of New Hampshire was on with Fox's Neil Cavuto yesterday. He said this, cut number 15.
Well, look, my sense is, I'd like to make a decision on who I'm going to get behind a little shortly after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in New England is usually when a lot of pretty intense politics go back and forth across the turkey dinner, and kind of talk to my family and talk to other folks, get their opinion. What do they think? Who do they think is doing pretty well? I'm spending a lot of time with all of them. I'll be with Chris Christie tonight at a town hall. When it comes to the debate, the three governors, because I'm obviously partial to governors, really did the best, right? So you have Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, DeSantis, they really, I think, stole the show last night. You had Ramaswamy, which looked a bit unhinged, unfocused. He tried to take hits at Nikki Haley. It came off as just unprepared and rude, if anything. And then Tim Scott is just a great senator, great guy, but isn't quite bringing the fire. There's no real change in strategy there. But the energy and the intensity and the leadership and background is really coming from those three governors. And those three are likely going to do the best in New Hampshire, compared to Donald Trump. And as I've always said, you and I have talked about it, you don't have to win Iowa, New Hampshire, or even South Carolina. But if one of those individuals can really kind of separate themselves from the pack going into Super Tuesday, well, now it's a 50-50. And as your previous reporter was saying, even a lot of Trump supporters are willing to walk away from him for the right reasons, because he can't win in November. And the most recent polls have proven that.
Well, I've got the Ellis items this morning, and 6 polls show that former President Trump can indeed beat Joe Biden, is beating Joe Biden. But Governor Sununu is entitled to his own opinion, and we will wait and see how these things shake out. The debates are crucial. The next debate is in December, and it takes a lot of work. Boy, NBC is professional about this. It takes a lot of rehearsal to make sure that the moderators don't get in the way of the candidates, and I hope we did that for you. Other news, Joe Manchin, senator from West Virginia, has announced that he is not running for re-election, which is wise because he's going to get crushed if he did. And he may run for no labels. Who knows? I don't know. But Joe Manchin is out. Frank Borman, a great American, died yesterday. He led the first orbit of the moon. So it's a figure from my youth. He died at the age of 95. And I've already told you, or you've already heard, that the Fed is keeping its options open. I have my Alice News items, the daily Substack I subscribe to by John Items. Interesting, important, or both, as he says. 6 new Emerson College polling statewide surveys find President Joe Biden trailing former President Donald Trump in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Biden does lead Trump in Michigan, but swing state voters are breaking significantly towards former President Trump or the Republican because they see the U.S.-Mexican border security as a greater priority than the foreign policy crisis that are currently swamping headlines. President Daniel Ortega has opened Nicaragua, by the way, to flights carrying tens of thousands of migrants from Haiti, Cuba, and Africa in recent months, which are swelling the ranks of people using the Central American country as a landing point in their journey north to the United States. We talked about the border at the end of the debate. We began the first hour of the debate was basically Israel, Ukraine, China. Second part, China, then inflation and entitlements. Then we recovered and talked about the border. I got to ask that question. Then we close with the election results from Tuesday and its impact, and then closing statements, and then 2 hours are done. But that border discussion about opioids maybe resonated more than anything with anyone other than the TikTok debate, which got the headline. According to John Ellis, in the third Republican primary debate, there was a clear winner, former UN ambassador and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. A 538 Washington Post Ipsos poll of potential Republican primary and caucus voters who watched Wednesday's debate, hosted by NBC News and yours truly, finds that a plurality, 34%, say Haley performed best. No other candidate on the stage came close to Haley. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was a distant second with 23%, and businessman Vivek Ramaswamy made a relatively negative impression with 29% of debate watchers saying he performed the worst. I got to tell you, I think everything is up in the air. I know it seems inevitable that we're going to have a Trump and Biden rematch. It does seem to me inevitable that absent something extraordinary, the former president will be one of the two contenders for the Republican primary. I mean, it's going to be driven by the rule set because winner-take-all primaries are winner-take-all primaries. If the field does not consolidate behind one candidate, then the former president is just going to win in a walk and get the nomination. And I believe he will beat Joe Biden because I believe Joe Biden is infirm and Americans are worried about many, many things. I also see a realignment happening. And boy, it comes clear when you spend this much time, as I did for the last 2 weeks, focused on the wars, focused on Israel, and I try and keep in mind there are 239 people in the tunnels of Hamas, including baby Kavir, many toddlers, Elisa. I pray for them every day. I hope you do as well. And I believe the barbarity of Hamas and the anti-Semitism that has exploded in the United States is realigning a crucial portion of the American electorate, even as a crucial portion of the American electorate is realigning on the border, becoming a security threat to the United States, and a crucial part of the electorate is realigning over China and the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party. So I think we're going to see a brand new electorate, and we have old figures in President Biden and former President Trump with a new, young electorate and emergent issues that are dividing the Democratic Party, unifying the Republican Party. So if you step back from all that, you say, I think we're going to have a Republican president in 2025. I hope we can get to there without a disaster around the world worse than 10-7, which was as bad as it gets. But I do believe that this is, it really crystallized for me. The Republican Party is right on the issues that matter to most Americans. And those issues are, we've got to stop letting our people get killed by opioids. We have to get control of the border. We have to support Israel. We have to rearm and expand the Navy. Yes, I got my Navy question. I got to hammer my Navy question because the Cold War version 1 was won by the American arms buildup by Ronald Reagan, and China will be deterred and if necessarily defeated by the United States Navy principally, although, of course, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, of course, the Marines are part of the sea services, and our Space Force and our cyber warriors will be part of that if there is a conflict. But it seems to me that it is crystallizing that China is doing everything they can to destroy this country, both physically through the importation of opioid, fentanyl, synthetic fentanyl, through the cartels in Mexico. The precursor chemicals are given, and in they come, and they're using TikTok to poison the minds of an entire generation. And I was so glad to get the TikTok question, and I was so glad to get the responses, and I just think we're in a moment of realignment and generational change. And either former President Trump or Joe Biden's got to make the case that they're better prepared for that if they are the nominees. I don't know who's going to be the nominee. I'll keep covering that.